Now what's really quite interesting about the Llanberis path is that for most of the year this is arguably the easiest route up Snowdon. In the winter this can actually be one of the most dangerous routes, the Convex of death or the killer Convex, and it has been responsible for quite a few deaths over the years. There was 4 deaths in the space of a week here. It really is not to be underestimated. So the Llanberis path starts off in Llanberis town itself at the mountain railway station. From here you'll want to walk down the road towards this roundabout, and then you're going to take a right into the street. Now continue down this street until you get to a steep road that's got a cattle grid at the beginning of it. This is the actual beginning of the Llanberis path. Now this is a really steep start, and it's a road, so there's not much traction, so in the winter this can get really icy and slippery. So once you've got to the top of this road, you're going to want to make sure that you take a left turn here rather than going straight on up here. Well, welcome back to another video. Sorry, it's been a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, my car has been off the road yet again with another electrical fault. I think I might have managed to fix this one, but I've been a little bit hesitant to drive out to Wales or the Lake District just in case it breaks down on the way. So this is actually the first hike that I've been on in around about a month, which is no good. Now what's really quite interesting about the Llanberis path is that for most of the year this is arguably the easiest route up Snowdon, and this is the route that most people choose to take when they do charity events or when you want to go up there for the first time. It's just a very gradual uphill that takes you all the way to the summit. So as I say, it's the choice that most people take. I'll tell you a little story about the Llanberis route. So I must have summited Snowdon at least 100-200 times over the last 12 or 13 years. And there's only one time that I've ever not been able to make it all the way to the top. And that was when I was doing the Llanberis route for the first time ever. Now that might surprise some people because it's considered the easiest route up Snowdon. But let me tell you from experience that in the winter, this can actually be one of the most dangerous routes up Snowdon. It really is not to be underestimated. And that kind of brings me to the reason why I've decided to put this video together today, aside from the fact that I've not been on a hike for about a month. So I just wanted to get out and have a little blast, clean those cobwebs out and all that. So the reason is that we've just recently had a pretty big dump of snow, which by all accounts is quite early in the year compared to usual. And it's been probably over a decade since we've had a good winter. Now when I say good, what I mean is incredibly cold, lots of snowfall and constant freeze-thaw cycles that basically make the snow compact and turn into kind of like ice really. There's a lot of people who have only just got into the mountains and the outdoors because of COVID. They're probably never going to have experienced an actual proper winter, and there's a lot of things that you need to know really when heading out to mountains in the winter. Now I am trying not to make this video come across as being preachy, but what it is supposed to do is to kind of forewarn people about the true nature of the Llanberis path in the winter. Now you may have noticed that this video is jumping around quite a lot, and the reason for that is that even though it's a Tuesday, there's a constant stream of people coming down the mountain, and I'm actually coming up pretty late. It's around about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so only about an hour until sunset. Now, not wanting to be judgmental, it is fairly apparent that the majority of the people coming down are doing so in trainers and tracksuits and things like that. Now, what has me really concerned is that if people come up looking for the winter when it's been a proper dump of snow, they may find themselves in an incredibly dangerous situation. So this video is hopefully going to highlight a few do's and don'ts and ensure that people have a safe and enjoyable hike up and down Snowdon. So I'm just approaching the halfway house, and while this is not exactly halfway up the mountain, what it really does do is highlight the point where it stops being a gentle ascent and it starts getting a little bit steeper and a little tiny bit more technical. Now it's actually just past this point where things can start becoming really dangerous in the wrong conditions and if you don't have the right gear. So once you've passed the halfway house, you're gonna continue up the path until eventually you come to a tunnel. Now you need to be very careful when you get to this tunnel because if it's snowy and windy, you might have your head down, and just at the end of that tunnel is actually a steep cliff drop. So That time that I told you when I wasn't able to make it up Snowdon, I got to just that point, nearly came a cropper of that very same cliff, and it was so cold and so windy that I pretty much decided at that point that it was going to be safer to stop and turn around rather than to press on. Now, as you can see, just ahead, the path starts to get quite steep, and then alongside that path is a really quite severe cliff drop. Now, the cliff drop is actually alongside the train track rather than the path itself, and this is where a lot of people go wrong. What people choose to do is they choose to follow the train track rather than to stick to the path. And the reason for that is usually that the path is a lot steeper than the train track. However, there are a few things that you really need to bear in mind. Firstly, it is illegal to walk on a train track regardless of whether it's on a mountain or not. And there's up to £1,000 fine for that. It's trespassing, and you shouldn't really take that lightly. But it's also not a path. It's not designed to be walked on. And in the winter, that train track can actually bank out with snow. So you could be walking on the track 1 minute and then all of a sudden the track has completely disappeared and you're essentially just on a slope. And what people don't realise if there's no visibility is that slope is just going to shoot you straight off the cliff. And that is the convex of death, or the killer convex. And it has been responsible for quite a few deaths over the years. In fact, there was 4 deaths in the space of a week here about 10 years ago, something like that. It really, as I say, is not to be taken lightly. Now, what makes things a little bit more complicated about the Llanberis path is that even in the winter, most winters, it's actually still a very straightforward path. It's only in the more severe winters where things completely change, and this can become one of the most dangerous paths up Snowdon. Now, I do think it's a little tiny bit misleading because the map shows the path as being the main problem, when actually it's the train track itself that is the more dangerous of the two, but they both kind of happen at the exact same point. And this is actually the reason why most people choose to go on the tracks rather than the path, because the path gets really steep and it looks really daunting, so people choose to go on the kind of much more shallow train track. And that is where things can take a turn for the worst. I think that no matter what time of the year you see somebody heading up the train track, you should always advise them that it's not a good idea. I mean, if you're not going to get hit by a train, you do run the risk of walking off the edge of the cliff in fog or a whiteout. So even though today most of the snow has thawed, there are still a lot of people who have visited in order to go up and enjoy a little bit of the snow, and that's only likely to get worse if there's a more kind of consistent dump of snow that lasts a few weeks or a few months. When I first got into hiking, I was going up with a lovely fella who sadly passed away about 4 years ago, and he drilled it into my head, basically the dangers of this convex, and I feel that it's kind of like my duty to warn other people about it. And I do believe that this is a really important thing that's missing nowadays. When I got into hiking, I had a guide who was really knowledgeable and was able to show me the do's and don'ts for pretty much everywhere that we went together. The problem that we've got nowadays is most people's guides are actually social media. And what that's doing is it's just showing people the lovely sights, but there's never really any context. There's never any explanation of the potential dangers. And I think that it's a key element of knowledge that's being missed out on. And that's what this video is really for, is to hopefully kind of fill in a few of those gaps. I did say that I'm going to try and not be preachy, and I appreciate that I am being very bloody preachy. So if you plan on going up the mountains in the winter, I would strongly advise that you buy yourself a mountaineering axe or a walking axe and learn how to use it. This is pretty much going to be the only thing that's going to save your life if you ever start to slip and fall in the winter. Now, I will put a video together actually in the next couple of months showing people how to use an ice axe properly. It's not going to be a full-on tutorial. There are some amazing videos out there, but I'm just going to kind of touch on it when I'm next up a mountain and I need to use an axe myself. The sun is just setting now, so it's going to go dark in around about 15-20 minutes. So I'll be ending this video shortly. I'm just going to head up to the tunnel, and then I'm just going to show you where the path and the train track intersect. Now, it does get considerably steeper at this point, but this isn't the steepest part of the path. That's around the corner once you've headed through this tunnel. And you should just be able to make out there that the train track runs really quite close to this cliff, and as you can see, that cliff is just on line with the clouds, so visibility when you're on that track is going to be quite minimal. So as I mentioned before, as soon as you come through this tunnel, if you keep going, maybe your head's down because it's really windy, you basically come to this big drop here. Now once you've got through the tunnel, this is where things start to get really steep. So just ahead of me now is where the path and the train line both intersect, and this is where a lot of people choose to follow the train line instead of the path. And as you can see, the fence kind of stops here, and this is where people choose to hop along and follow the track instead of the path up there. Now it is quite cloudy today, and that is not unusual at all, and that is part of what adds to the danger here, because this train track follows all the way around here and starts hugging the cliff. Now you can't really see, as I say, because of the clouds, but as you follow around you can see the cliff. So I'm going to end the video here because the sun set around about 10 minutes ago and it's starting to go dark quite quickly now. I didn't want this to be as preachy as it is, but it's just a bit of a warning and advice video. Now, the conditions required to make the Llanberis path one of the most hazardous up Snowdon only happens every 5 or 10 years, and to be honest, it's probably been around about 10 years since the last time that happened, so we are probably overdue for another one. I do have a feeling that this year is going to be one of those years because we've had this early dump of snow, and I think combined with the fact that we've got a lot more new blood on the mountains than ever before, I think there is the potential for this to become a bit of an accident hotspot this year. So if you've come across this video and you are new to mountaineering and you are planning on perhaps coming up this way in the winter, please do heed my advice. It really is a dangerous route if the conditions aren't right. Do yourself a favour, get an ice axe and learn how to use it. Trust me, winter mountaineering is absolutely amazing. It's my favourite time of the year, but you really do need to be extra careful because it's just not the same as it is in the summer. If you've got anything to add about this video, drop a comment below and we can have a little chat about it. Well, it's got a little bit chilly, so I've had to plop the old woolly hat on. If you feel that you've got anything from this video, please do consider liking and subscribing. It really does help spread the word and help grow my channel. I'm almost at 1,000 subscribers now, so I'd like to thank absolutely everybody for the continued support through my little YouTube journey. Anyway, that's it for now. I'll see you on the next one.